Hello, everyone. Just to let you know, we'll begin in 1 minute. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you then. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Declan Carolyn. I'm co-chair of ECR Community, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar this morning to launch their Packaging Design for Recycling Guide. Let me give a quick introduction into ECR Community and the guide, and then I'll be delighted to introduce our panelists and presenters for today. ECR Community is a global not-for-profit association comprising of ECR national initiatives across the world. We provide a neutral platform, which is very important, to develop and share best practices among our network of ECR nationals and their local members. A key focus area for us is the circular economy. And in fact, later on this year, we will release a guide on best practices in the circular economy throughout the world from retailers and manufacturers. But for today, we will focus on the output of 2 years' work in publishing the Packaging Design for Recycling Guide. And we're delighted to support the publication of these global recommendations for circular packaging design for recycling. The guide aims to promote knowledge development within the retail and CPG sector as companies transition to new packaging designs that help to minimize their environmental impact while ensuring packaging remains fit for purpose and continues to look good. New packaging legislation will surely emerge across the planet in the coming years, and this will significantly disrupt the packaging landscape, so it is critical that retailers and manufacturers remain ahead of the curve, especially for those operating in multiple markets. And we think the recommendations in this guide should assist in guiding companies accordingly. Let me welcome onto our virtual stage this morning Nerida, Teresa and Ernst. And great if you can join me, and great if you can give a quick introduction to yourselves and why you're here. Good morning, Nerida.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you're dialing in from around the world. And I am the Vice President for Sustainability and Safe Food for the World Packaging Organization. So thank you to ECR Community for having the WPO here tonight.
Thank you, Nerida. Hello, Teresa.
A warm welcome from my side. I'm heading up the ECR Austria initiative, and I'm proud that together with Ernst, we can present the work that we have done here in Austria over the last couple of years. And we are even more proud to now share this on behalf of the ECR community for the global scope, so to support each and every one of you.
Thank you, Teresa. And good morning, Ernst.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, or good evening or good afternoon to everybody around the world who is listening to this webinar. My name is Ernst Krottendorfer from the University of Applied Sciences, Campus Vienna. I am one of the creators of this Packaging Design for Recycling guideline, and I'm very happy to present the content of this guideline to you today.
Thank you so much, Ernst. Ernst, you're going to give us a short presentation to outline the guide, and after that, perhaps we'll ask Teresa and Nerida to join us, and we'll have a quick chat about the guide. And what I would encourage all listeners to do is please send us in any questions, comments, or queries for this panel discussion, which we have after Ernst's presentation. But in the meantime, Ernst, over to you.
Thank you very much, Declan. So what I'm presenting to you today is the Packaging Design for Recycling guide that has been created in collaboration of World Packaging Organization and the ECR community. Yeah, what would I like to show to you today? First of all, some short introductions, because it always is necessary at the beginning. Then I would speak about the organizations behind the guideline project. Then I will go into the content of the guideline and the structure. And then I would like to make you familiar with next steps of the guideline project, because the project does not end with the publication of the guideline. Yeah, I'm coming from the University of Applied Sciences, Campus Vienna. I am working there at the Packaging and Resource Management section, a section that we have created 6 years ago, because we thought it would be very important to work on these issues. I'm, as I said, a lecturer at the university, but I'm also managing director of Backforce Austria. Backforce Austria is the Austrian member of the World Packaging Organization, and I'm the Austrian board member there. And I'm also managing partner at a consulting company called Circular Analytics, where we analyze circular packaging designs. Yeah, you have already been made familiar with the World Packaging Organization and the ECR Community. Both of these organizations are really global organizations, and it's the first time that packaging, consumer goods, and retail are joining forces for a circular packaging design. Because you know, you can only act in a circular economy if really all players in this circular economy are connected. And here, for the first time, we put packaging, consumer goods, and retail together. To start with, packaging fulfills very essential tasks. Packaging prevents damage, it prevents product loss, it prevents product waste, and it fulfills therefore very important environmental tasks within the supply chain. Although packaging is so important also with regards to environment, in the current social and political discourse, packaging is seen as a problem, because packaging has a waste problem. And therefore, we all have to work together to create a really circular packaging supply chain. And all supply chain stakeholders have to work together in order to realize that. So the guideline that we have developed is addressing this circular economy challenge of packaging. And what we want with this guideline, first of all, is we want to promote knowledge about circular packaging design. This is clear. And we want also to create a common understanding of circular packaging design, because there are so many institutions around the globe working on circular economy and circular packaging design. And with this guide, for the first time, we want to start a kind of international harmonization of these design standards. And we want to create a really practical design tool that's easy to use and to understand for all players and for all stakeholders in the supply chain, so that at the end we can increase the recyclability of packaging and we can increase recycling rates. And with the guideline, it is very important to apply certain principles of circular packaging design. And this is, everybody needs a basic understanding of collection, sorting, and recycling processes. Without this basic understanding, it's not possible to create a circular packaging design. So the guideline covers different materials and packaging types. So all major packaging materials, plastic, paper, glass, metal, are covered by the guideline. And we also cover many different packaging types here. And the content of the guideline is, first of all, we establish recyclable packaging design. What is recyclable packaging design? And then we give material-specific recommendations. After these material-specific recommendations, we go into details of packaging types, and we give detailed design recommendations for specific packaging types, like bottles, like cups, like cans. What we also have in the guideline is an extensive glossary, and notes and comments on technical terms, because this guideline should also be used not only for technical people, but also from other people in the supply chain that are not so familiar on a daily basis with packaging technology. And we also give some information on sustainability, on circular economy as a whole in this guideline. The guideline covers food, near food, and non-food products. It covers primary packaging, secondary packaging, and tertiary packaging. So it can be broadly applied to different products and to different types of packaging across the supply chain. It was very important for us to create a guideline that is really easy to use and to understand. So we have created some structural tools to support the user. First of all, there is some color coding. So each different packaging type has a different color coding. We have the different packaging types. We have split it into material, decoration, and other components, and in closure systems. Why? Because these different packaging components are playing together and are influencing each other in order to create or prevent recyclability. So we have created a traffic light system to explain what one should do, what one should not do, or one should only do if necessary in order to create recyclable packaging and recyclable components of packaging systems. So here you have an example of material-specific recommendations, and these are available for all relevant materials. This is an example for plastics. Here we go, for example, into details, what materials should be used, what materials should be avoided. We talk about, for example, surface cover of sleeves, labels, banderoles. We talk about separability in the sorting process. We talk about colors of the different materials. We talk about additives. We talk about barriers. And we also tell which behaviors to avoid, like, for example, small parts that could get lost, components that are not recyclable, or density changing additives or colors one should not use. And here is an example of a recommendation per packaging type. And here we discuss in detail each different component. So we look into the material, we look into the decoration and other components, and we look into the closure systems. And we look into the different recommendations, what one should do, what one should avoid, or one should only do if necessary. And this reflects, and this evaluation also reflects the interplay between the different parts of the packaging. So this guideline can be used in order to create new packaging designs. This guideline can be used to check the recyclability of current packaging. And this guideline can also be used, for example, to harmonize design rules across countries or across industrial sectors, or also across, for example, international companies. So this is it about the guideline project. So we have what we are delivering now. What we have been delivered is a recommendation for mechanically recyclable packaging design. This has been done. But what we are also doing now, and what we have started to work on, is an overview of country-specific collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructures of packaging waste. Why we are doing that? The recyclability of a specific packaging system is more or less a theoretical analysis. It only gets practical when it has to be analyzed against the country-specific infrastructures, because only then it becomes recyclability, and recycling becomes a really practical issue. So it is important to investigate into these country-specific infrastructures, and it is also important to understand how different these infrastructures are, and on a longer term, how we can harmonize these infrastructures. Here is an example, a comparison between countries like Austria, Germany, and the Netherlands. Here you don't see a lot of differences. Here in these countries, the different collection, sorting, and recycling streams are relatively similar, but we will provide an international overview of these streams in exactly this format. And we hope that till December 22, we can finalize many countries across the world, and we can get an overview of their specific infrastructures. But the timing very much depends on the support that we get locally. But here with World Packaging Organization and ECR Community, we are very good suited in order to get this information on a global basis, because these organizations have associations across the globe. Here is the links to the guidelines. Here you can see where you can find these guidelines and where you can download the guideline. But I guess this information will be shared after the webinar. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very interested to answer any questions in the next 40 minutes. Thank you.
Ernst, thank you so much. And I suppose one of the things that really struck me about the guide was it's how practical and easy to read it is. As you go, and as a reference guide, it's a very strong piece of work, very visual. Let me welcome back Nerida and Teresa. But a quick question to you, Ernst. So why was the Global Packaging Design for Recycling Guide developed, and where was the idea first born?
Yeah, as you know, governments across the world are now setting very tough targets with regards to recycling rates. So we have to achieve much higher recycling rates with packaging than we are achieving so far. And the first step in achieving these recycling rates is create a circular packaging design, because this has to be the begin. And therefore, as also this has happened in Austria, as also in Austria, we have now tough targets in the future. We have created our first guideline 3 years ago and have updated that by the time. We are also a content partner of ECR Austria, and we are also working in projects with WPO. So it was very natural to put, let's say, all these ends together to create this international guideline.
Thanks, Ernst. Good evening, Nerida.
Hi, Jacqueline.
How are you? Great if you can explain the WPO's involvement.
Absolutely, and as Ernst said, we have the luxury of already working with PACFORCE and the University of Applied Science in Austria, so it's a established relationship that goes back many years. I think that the beauty of our involvement is that we're a global organisation, and we have such a broad membership across over 60 countries all the way around the world, which is just fantastic. And within our member countries, we represent developed countries and we represent developing countries, and packaging experts, technologists, engineers, sustainability experts. So we're bringing all of the packaging people to the conversation and to the guide, and certainly it's a fantastic opportunity to be able to work with the brands and the retailers as well to establish a harmonized guide. I think one of the great things about the WPO is that we want to be able to bring training and education and resources, global resources like this, to our members, and we want to be able to make sure that we're all singing from the same hymn book, and that we can help to lead and to train and educate and harmonise circular packaging design around the world. So it's a fantastic project to be a part of, Declan.
Thanks, Nerida, and hence why ECR Community are involved, because we're also very keen to create standardization and encourage examples of where retailers, manufacturers can work better together. So it fits in very well. Good morning, Teresa. Great if you can give us an explanation of ECR Austria's involvement.
So I think this is the perfect connection to what Nerida said, because when the WPO covers all the packaging experts, whereas we cover all the FMCG experts, be it on the retail side or the manufacturer side, we do have a lot of people there, obviously involved in packaging, but we do have brand managers, assortment managers, CEOs, and each and every one of these need to understand the basics on circular packaging, because otherwise we will never be able to meet our targets. So that's bringing really two industries together to make really a bold step in the right direction.
Thanks, Teresa. Ernst, question for yourself. There are a number of these guides. There are a number of guides across the world on packaging, but what makes this guide different, and why do you think it stands out?
Yeah, there are many guidelines now. There are guidelines for certain packaging materials, there are guidelines for certain packaging types, there are guidelines for certain countries. And some of these guidelines are really good. And our guideline is aligned with these major good guidelines. So it is kind of an overarching guideline. And what we are intending is a harmonization. So we need kind of global harmonization of all this guideline work. And this is a first intention to get to this objective.
Very good, Ernst. And considering that, Nerida, who do you think will be using the guide?
Well, hopefully everybody, Declan. I mean, we want manufacturers and brands to be using it. We want all the packaging experts, sustainability, environmental managers, and don't forget design agencies, marketing people, everyone, absolutely everyone that works with and around packaging should be using this guide, because it is a consistent standard, it's a harmonized standard, and it really is designed to create a better understanding of circular design at the front end. Because the more that we can create a harmonized approach to circular design at the front end, the better off we are at the other end for recovery and recyclability. And we really need to remember that. We need to start at the front and work together with globalized standards like this guide, and then collectively and collaboratively improve our packaging design.
Brilliant. Tell us, Ernst, you talked about this being the first step in a layered approach. Can you explain a little bit more about the next step?
Yeah, the next step is that we are investigating different countries' collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructures of packaging waste. Because recyclability, as Nerida said, is only the first step, but you need a system behind it to really recycle it. And the circular packaging design can only be seen behind the background of such an infrastructure, because only then the theoretical recyclability becomes a practical thing. And we also want to create an overview of all these different infrastructures. And we want to give companies across the globe this information about these different infrastructures. And seeing the differences, I think then it might be easier to come to a stronger harmonization also of these infrastructures.
Okay, and Nerida or Teresa, will either ECR Community or WPO members be able to keep in touch with these developments, or how do they go about that?
So I can give it a start first for all the ECR members. So definitely each and everyone listening now can approach us directly, me personally, but also Ernst, Nerida, and Declan. Or you can go to your local ECR contact because of all our ECR initiative head of have been informed separately, and then they will forward the information further on to university, because in the end it is really important that we get the right information out. And if we do not have the final version of the specific country, we still need to get some more information. So we will then liaise your country member with a WPO country member and the specific economic university members to get together to get the right things together.
Declan, I'll jump in as well. I think from a WPO perspective, 100% what Teresa is saying. The ECR community and the WPO organisation are here to now help all of you in your regions and countries to establish your regional guides and your country guides. And so what we're looking for is to everyone to put their hand up, let us know that you want a guide or you're interested in a guide in your country, and we'll establish a partnership in your country, in your region, with the university, the WPO associated contact in the ECR community to work on a guide that is more suitable and more practical, as Ernst said, so it's taking it to that stage 2 to make sure that there's a realistic recycling, recoverability and collection capability in your country that matches the guide's design aspects at the front end.
Brilliant. And we've a question from Sjoika, and I think you've answered it there, Nerida. Are these guidelines for EU only or internationally? It's international, isn't it?
Absolutely. Every country around the world that's listening here today, Ernst is probably panicking a little bit, but absolutely, we're going to say yes. Teresa and I are going to say yes to that. And Ernst and his fantastic technical team will find a solution for you. So everybody, it's for everybody.
We've plenty of questions coming in. Ernst Mohammed says, I really like the way Professor Ernst designed it regarding harmonization and country-specific practical approach. I think that's key to it. Yeah, the key is its readability, is usability, and using as a reference guide and a source of inspiration as well. So congratulations on that. Hans is inquiring, will the participants get this presentation via email? We're recording it, and you're more than welcome to any of the slides. I believe they will be on the ECR Community website, probably on the WPO website. Nonetheless, you'll be able to contact any of us for that. The question about will it be available in multiple languages?
Yeah, we are working on that.
I can take that question for now. So we have a German version and we have an English version so far, but we will share the basic of the English version to the WPO central marketing offices. And from there, we will then be able to develop various languages that we want to cover. So obviously, it needs to be translated and then it needs to be built in the right way. But we make this guide accessible to everybody, and then one step after the other, we will work on various languages if needed. But English for the first step should be a starting point.
And Declan, we have had a number of countries already reach out looking for translated versions for their regions, and Teresa and I are certainly talking on the next step for that. So if anybody is listening today that is interested, just let us know and we'll work with you, and particularly if you've got a local translator or interpreter that has very high-end packaging skills, we just need to make sure that it's compatible with the translation from English.
Thanks, Nerida. That came from Chris Foley from the Kmart Group in Australia.
No, I don't need to translate for Chris.
However, they source from across Asia. So Chris is saying the guide would be useful for their global sourcing operations.
Well, Chris knows my details, so he can reach out. So that one's easy.
Let me read out a comment from Gokan. I believe for all kinds of materials of packaging, communication area, label or print, for example, should avoid using too much bounding components, and a brand company should be warned about it. But I believe it is very important part of circularity. What do you think? Thank you for your sharings. So I think the question is there about bounding components. Does that make sense?
Maybe it's about additives.
Let me move on to another question from Carol. How will the different sorting collection infrastructure within a country be addressed in step 2?
Sorry, can you repeat, Declan?
Sure. How will the different sorting collection infrastructure within a country be addressed in step 2?
Yeah, we are going to work with the local ECR or WPO association, and we are going together with them. We are going to investigate what is existing in terms of infrastructure, and we are also investigating what are the local rules that are existing there. Are there any local guidelines? Are there any what is the legal framework around that in a specific country? And with all this information, we are preparing this country-specific structure.
Thank you, Ernst. This is a good question coming in from Mark Collins. And I suppose it's a very relevant question when there's so many different standards around the world. And his query is, there's a similar tool in Australia called PREP. And do we envisage that ECR guidelines will supersede local guidelines?
Well, PREP is a software tool. It's a portal. So it's packaging, recycling, evaluation tool. So it's a portal. It's not a guide. So the guide that we have here tonight or today is actually a theoretical guide on what best practice circular design looks like with the highest standard state-of-the-art infrastructure, recovery and technology, whereas PREP is a software tool and it's linked to the recoverability in our country here, but it's not actually, it's slightly different.
Okay, thanks for that. And that answered a question from Sarah. Teresa.
Yeah, maybe to add on this one, I think each and everyone can take its own to make sure that the guideline is valid in your country. So when we developed this in Austria, we shared this with our retailers as well as our manufacturers and packaging companies as well, and we made sure that each and every one of these companies are committed to this guideline. So once you start in another country to work in that direction, to work together to investigate in the waste stream, then you need to make sure that the retailers are on board, the manufacturers are on board, and the packaging guys are on board. So we're all pulling in one direction. And I think that's part of the knowledge and the DNA of ECR. So to get an industry-wide solution in order to make that happen. So that's, everybody can be or has to be part of this journey.
Yeah, and Declan, one of the most important things is that a lot of countries, developed countries, do have guides, as Ernst mentioned at the start of the webinar, and they do have consistent standards or they have their own regulations. There are also a lot of other countries that need assistance, that need help, developing countries that are looking for learnings and education and training and knowledge so that they can build up their recoverability and recyclability capabilities in that country. So I think that depending on where you sit in the world and whether you have an established infrastructure and recovery capabilities, it's very different from a developing country where they would probably find more value in this guide than some other more established countries.
Okay. I'm going to keep going questions here. We have plenty of good questions coming in. A nice question here. It's one of clarification from Jim. Thanks so much for the introduction. I heard significant use of recycling in this introduction, but does the guideline also cover the higher value loops of the circular economy? For example, reuse.
I mean, we are touching on these different hierarchies. But the guideline specifically is for recycling. Of course, we know that reuse is, so to say, in the hierarchy, in the circular economy hierarchy, a little bit higher than recycling, but we are concentrating here on recyclability.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it goes as far as that, but when you go further within circular economy, you're into into a next area. This one's focused specifically on the design and guide for the packaging to promote circular economy. Are there any training courses on the implementation of these guidelines for packaging practitioners? Or has any intention to add it to has AIP any intention of adding it to their tier training program? And that comes from Gokan to Nerida.
Well, the WPO has every intention of developing education and training courses on this in partnership with ECR Community and in partnership with the university and Ernst technical team. So 100% that we are planning to do this. Watch this space. That's the next conversation that this group needs to have collaboratively. It is very important that we do take that step and provide some training and education, and particularly, as I mentioned, for countries that are really keen to take value from this and learning so that they can establish better circular design in their own country.
Great, thanks Nerida. Technical question from Lou. Are there any testing protocols in the guidelines?
No, there are no testing protocols yet in the guideline. This is something that we can develop at a later stage.
Okay, do you know what? We've so many questions coming in. I'm going to keep firing them out for the next, let's go 10 minutes, okay? And after that, we'll endeavor to correspond to anyone who we don't have time, because I see about another 10 or 15 questions. But here's an interesting one from Andrew. Do you think the following guidelines will result in more or less expensive packaging, as many companies will not want to change if there is a financial penalty? Debatable, you may have to change, but debatable as to whether it's going to be more or less expensive. What do you think, Ernst?
Yeah, I think the question is here, many governments will pose higher, you will have higher license fees, you will pay plastic tax, and all this is based on recyclability. So the better your recyclability, the more cost you will save on license fees, and the more cost you will save on plastic tax. So there is a you would have to calculate, but I think all in all, on the long run, you are better off with a packaging that's recyclable. And I also think that after a certain moment in time, retailers will not accept packaging that is not recyclable.
And Declan, if I may jump in as well, every country around the world follows different extended producer responsibility, PRN, voluntary commitment targets, you name it, but we're all pretty much trying to achieve the same thing, which is to lower environmental impacts, to minimize packaging waste, to minimize single-use problematic materials, and to try and make sure that we have circularity in our design. So anything that we can do to lower the environmental impacts through improved, harmonized global standards for circular design, the better we are as a planet.
Absolutely. Yeah. Teresa, an interesting question for you from Boyke from Ghana. Teresa, can you please repeat your narration of the procedure we need to adopt in getting to work on the country-specific infrastructural data?
Okay, so the very first step is to drop an email to, in the best case, to Ernst, because he is next to the technical team at the university. But if it lands in my inbox on the readers, we're going to forward it. So whoever you want to write an email, that's the first step. Then we will approach you again with an idea of how the local waste collection system can be investigated. Either there are people on the ground from the World Packaging Organization, from other universities. So we will make sure we get this information to the right extent, and then we can set up the wasting stream and then make it feasible to the design guide. But probably Ernst has already an idea about Ghana. I don't know.
What we have is we have already a let's say a blueprint for questions that we have to ask certain countries. So there is a questionnaire that has to be filled out in order that we can collect the right information. And I think it's important in a specific country to contact the right people to get this specific information that you need. because I don't think that one person will be in a position to answer all these questions. So there will be probably governmental institutions, there will be collection systems, there will be certain associations that will have to answer these questions.
Okay, thank you, Ernst. Here's an interesting question from Ida. For the packaging to be recycled, it needs to be collected in the correct way. Will you also be looking into packaging marking to support the consumer to dispose the package in the correct way? I don't believe so. I believe that's another step, but it's a very relevant question along the process.
Ernst, I think it's another project for you and your team.
Can you repeat the question? I'm at the...
It was just a query. Will we be looking into packaging marking to support the consumer in how they dispose of the product in the correct way, which is a great.
Yeah. Now that there is a project after the project, so to say. So labeling is something that comes in a, I would say, third step.
And it's a great question, because within the circular design aspects of the guides, if we can link it to how to recycle in the US, or OPRL in the UK, or ARL in Australia, it's a really good opportunity to make sure that we're linking localized regulations or labeling or on-pack, off-pack communication to make sure that consumers know how to recycle it appropriately in the country that it's sold in.
Okay, I think it's a similar question or comment from Tunde. Wonderful initiative of a harmonized guideline, which is also a huge challenge regarding the differences among regions and countries. Just to mention the end of life, how are the different solutions, for instance, collection, recycling technologies, covered in the guideline and updated due to technology changes and improvements? Thanks. So it is I believe that's a similar question, isn't it? That is another project to look at the end of life guidelines. Am I correct in that?
I mean, our end of life that's intended for this for circular design is recycling. So besides recycling, there are other possible end of lives, but we are intending that we can recycle as much as possible. And this is the aim of the guideline.
I think, hello Tunde. I think that one of the parts that Tinta is probably asking is in terms of country-specific infrastructure and capabilities. So the guide that we're launching tonight, Tunde, is a theoretical best practice, state-of-the-art technology, leading edge guide. So what good looks like, what best good looks like. The next stage is country specific, and that will link to true recovery capabilities and infrastructure in the country or region.
Okay, thanks for that. I would say I probably have another 20 questions. Let me finish with one more, and then perhaps we go to close. And it's from Albert Lim in Singapore, who's involved in packaging reduction there. We're in progress of having a mandatory report of use of packaging material. I would like to know, how would you deal with flexible packaging, which is the most difficult material for recycling or recovery?
Yeah, we know that with flexible packaging, especially with multi-layer flexible packaging that contains barriers, is very difficult to recycle at the moment. So we are running, for example, at the university, various research projects of how we can substitute multi-layer structures with monolayer structures. And in the guide, we say at various points that only monolayer structure is the aim to, is the final target in order to be able to make flexible packaging recyclable.
Okay, look, apologies to about the other 20 questions which I have, which we will endeavour to reply to privately following this webinar, but we're running out of time. So I'd love to go to Ernst, Teresa and Nerida, and just leave us with your final thoughts or final comments that you'd like to leave the audience with, please.
Shall I start, or ladies first?
Teresa, over to you.
Okay. So I would really love to encourage each and every one of you to take this booklet, to download it for free, to have a look, and depending on what job you are doing, make a first evaluation of the packaging you have in place. So how far have you got so far? Have an idea of, where are the green ticks and where is still room for improvement. And in the end, distribute this to as many colleagues as you can, because with this together, we can make the difference. Each and every one of us can contribute to a more circular and a better world. And so I think that's a very good feeling if you can, not only as a person, but also as a job professional person, make your own personal contribution. So that's what I would love to invite you to do.
Very good. Nerida.
Well, I echo everything that Teresa said. Download it, share it, read it, learn, that 100%. But I would also say to all of the countries that are listening tonight that really do need assistance with developing your infrastructure, your recovery, your recycling capabilities, or assistance for circular design and developing standards for circular design within your country, please reach out to us. This project is here for you. This is what this next stage is here to do, and we would be really excited to collectively around the world help you to improve your circular design. So please reach out and we will do our best to help you.
Thank you, Nerida. Final words, Ernst.
Yeah, final words. I would also say download the guideline, please use it, and please give us feedback, because this is the first issue of this guideline and we will update it constantly, and we depend on your feedback in order to make it better, make it more usable, make it more applicable. Contact us, give us your feedback.
Thank you. So thank you, Ernst, Teresa and Nerida, and indeed congratulations. I think it's a very usable, practical guide. I'll put on screen the links where you can go to download it, which are very obvious enough at ECR Community, ECR Austria, or a World Packaging Organization. Thank you to the over 200 people which joined us today. And thank you for so much interaction with all of the questions, which we will reply to them all. And please, as Nerida, Teresa and Ernst said, please feel free to give us feedback. That'll all be used in looking at the next steps and in keeping the guide up to date and modern and on trend. I thank you for joining us this morning or tonight, wherever you are, and take care and stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.